This is a Bontrager BackRack bicycle luggage carrier that mounts to the rear of the bicycle with 6 bolts. Assembly and fitting take a combined 30 minutes or so depending on your skill, and in this video I'll show you what it takes to mount the BackRack in terms of tools and equipment, as well as how to fit it properly. The BackRack is already assembled and is secure and has a rated capacity of 25 kilograms or 55 pounds, but it's greatly adjustable with a little bit of cutting and fitting. I've been using it for months and I love it. It interlocks with an expandable 10 to 36 liter capacity trunk bag. This is how the trunk bag looks like. So as is, it's 10 liters here, and it has a clever latch on the underside of it. This is where they interlock with the BackRack, and when you open down the panniers here, that's gonna get you 36 liters in total. So at the time of the purchase, I didn't have the time to fit the BackRack properly, so it just got assembled and mounted quickly. But now I will take the time to adjust the fit. The tools that you need are fairly straightforward hand tools. You are going to need a 4mm Allen key or hex key, just like this one. Make sure it's not chewed up or worn out, or make sure it's dimensionally accurate. And you have 2 bolts here. I'm going to get you a close-up of the mounting points, and 2 bolts there. So in the frame there, I'm going to leave it here because that's where loosening the bolts begin. And I have another one here. An 8mm wrench fits on the lower mounting bolt there. So you have 2 mounting bolts there, one on the left, one on the right. And I'm just going to leave this wrench dangling there. It's going to drop shortly, and I'll just leave it there for now. Beyond that, you're going to need a torque wrench like so. That's calibrated in inch-pounds. The tightening specifications for especially the bolt in the frame here and here are not specified by Bontrager, but I'm going with 5 Newton meters of torque because several, like the seat clamp fastener as well as the handlebar fasteners, are 5 Newton meters of torque specified, so I'm just going with that. Those are structural items. This is somewhat structural. I don't want to lose it, and I don't want to strip the screws and damage the aluminum frame because I'm not really ready to helicoil it and repair the frame. So 5 Newton meters is it. There is a small spring washer underneath this bolt here that secures it, but you can also go with blue Loctite or a suitable thread lock compound. So that's some equipment that you need, or tool that you need. What else do we need here? I'm going to use this small torpedo level. I'm going to explain how it has to do with the fitting, as well as we'll cut some of this mounting bar here that's angled down there. It has some notches. I'm going to get you a close-up shortly, and just to indicate some length, because it's been made to be shortened to fit as needed. I'm going to cut it with an angle grinder like so, with a zip disc mounted on it. You're welcome to cut it. It's soft aluminum. Welcome to cut it with a hacksaw, a bandsaw, any kind of power saw, circular saw, whatever. They will work fantastically well. Other than that, I have put it in the drill press and drilled a small hole through it. I shortened this bar and drilled a small hole through it somewhere here, and I will place a small cotter pin through it, or a small this is an aluminum bread nail, something I can easily bend with my hand, or some tie wire. That's just for some additional measure, just in case this bolt here ever comes loose, or both of them at the same time ever come loose, then they don't slide apart. Maybe not paranoia, but anyhow, it's a small feature and it's totally optional. I'm gonna double up some tie wire or something like that. So let's start with just mounting, plain mounting. You have these 6 bolts, and I'm gonna get you a close-up of the lower mounting point here. Bear with me with the camera and with the light. I have in my hand this trouble light, so as to make sure that everything is well lit. So you can see how the wrench fits on the bolt, and you have both of these vertical bars on the back rack, the blue one, as well as the two shiny wire steel stays mounted to the same pivot point there, or the same, let me just put it there, to the same feature of the frame here. This is a small insert that rotates out of the frame, and on the opposite side, if you take a look there, you can see how this black aluminum used to be housed in this direction, but can be removed and rotated out just like so, to for this purpose, so that both the Axion fender and the Bontrager BackRack can both be mounted. Of course, this is not only the feature on this Norco threshold, but other bicycle manufacturers may have the same feature on the frame to accommodate both a mudguard and a back rack, different makes and different models. So beyond that, the lower mounting point, we have this upper mounting point here in the frame. There you can see a small washer underneath, but I will take out the bolt, as well as this mounting point here, in which I placed this small 4mm hex key. So I'm going to put you back on the tripod here, and I'm going to explain what I have in mind with the torpedo level. The torpedo level is somewhat special, but it's a very plain, something like $12 tool or so. This is the tool manufacturer on it, and of course has a vial on it that indicates horizontal or level position between those two lines that you see painted on the vial. So this would be level, this would be out of level, and this is also out of level. It's very subtle, it's very sensitive. There's a curvature to this vial here, so when the bubble is in the middle, that's when the curvature is the highest point of the curved vial is in the correct position. It works this way as well as it works this way. This part here on it has a groove on it, and this one has a magnetic strip on it. Right next to this vial there's another graduated vial here that shows you percentages. Plumbers typically use this kind of vial. There you can see 0, so level is here where the bubble is just barely touching the 0 there, and then 1/8, 1/4, 3/8 and 1/2 inch. So these are marks for being out of level. You can see that the two bubbles don't work together. They kind of work together, but that's the level position for both of them. This is in the middle and this one is at 0, and if I tilt it, from this vial, this bubble just runs to the end right away, but this one is curved less and it shows gradations of being out of level. So all that story to show you that the length of this bar can be adjusted by these mounting points so that the back rack is level. In order to be level, you have to make sure that the bicycle is vertical to begin with. There goes the 8mm wrench or spanner, depending on where you are. And because aluminum is not magnetic, so the magnetic strip doesn't work and it just slides around, I'm going to use the grooved side on it. Now there is a weld here that's maybe not somewhat in the way, but somewhat interferes with this leveling process a little bit. You can go to the middle if you so choose, or you can go to the edge of it and check it at the edge. I don't think I'm going to be super accurate with this one or super scientific. So that's how this looks like. You can see the bubble moving in both of the vials, and this is where it would be level. It's not level. You can see the gap there. It's out, let's see, a quarter inch over the whole length of the level. That's what quarter inch is. So it's out yay much. I don't know if it's 2 degrees or 5 degrees for vertical. I want to bring it to horizontal, and in order to do that I have to cut this bar, because it just so happens that the Bontrager BackRack and the Axion mudguard stay just hit each other here, and it's been causing noise and nuisance for me ever since it's been mounted. ever so slightly, and it's been bothering me, one for noise, and two, it's just slightly out of level. I want it perfectly horizontal, so that, because that's how the load capacity rating was established, as well as I want the least amount of drag. I'm not saying this is streamlined by any stretch of imagination, but if it's catching a lot of wind, and I'm going to exaggerate with the shape and push it further out, you get the idea. If it's catching a lot of wind, that part fell, don't worry about it, then it's not really practical. So I want it streamlined and forward as much as possible, but you can see it gets stuck thereabouts. So what needs to happen is, need to remove this bolt here entirely, and the bar needs to be shortened. I'm gonna show you at this point, before I forget, how this spring washer here looks like. It's not rocket science, it's a small feature. It's kind of stuck to the bolt head, but it's there. And at this point, I don't know if how springy it is, but it looks like just a thin disc that has some springiness to it. So that's that. On the other side that fell out is this component here, which looks like this. The bars are, this is how the bars are joined together. Let me just pull this one out. Maybe it needs a little backing out on this bolt here. Just about 2 turns will do it. There. So this is how the bar looks like. You can see these lines on it clearly, and you can see the dimple on it. This is where it previously was mounted when it was not quite fitting so well. So at this point, this just comes off this crossbar on the rack, and you have 2 of these components. Very straightforward. Now you might want to mark it, of course, before this assembly, what length you want to cut it at. I have marked, of course, the other side, which is, I'm going to bend it, you can kind of, there you can see the end of it, and I cut it off there because I know that this is going to go somewhere roughly there, and I would need to pull it forward to center the bubble there. And I'm going to tighten this clever clamp bolt here thereabouts, somewhere there when they slide together, something like that. So in this position, when the bicycle is vertical side to side like so, I want to mark the position of the back rack so that the bubble is centered there and at 0 there. So this is as forward as I want to go, and but it also gives me an indication of the length, so I just picked this length. Now ideally, when you take off both bars, you might want to cut both bars side by side at the same time. That makes a lot of sense, I hope. So I'm going to take out the opposite side. I of course already cut this side, but I just want to copy the measurement, the length of this, to duplicate it on the other side. Here you can see the washer comes away, and it's not especially a springy feature. It looks like quite flat. Maybe it went flat. Maybe you want to replace it with an actual spring washer just a little bit, and might want to put blue thread lock on it. It looked a little more springier in the dark. So anyhow, that's the fastener or bolt that goes there, and this is how my cut looks like on this end. The end of this aluminum tubing was filed there, in that way, so it's nice and smooth, and it's not catching on fibers or my clothing. And I drilled a tiny little hole in it, just like so I can put a small cotter pin into the original dimple. I just used that to start the drilling process, and just punch the hole through there with some small drill bit. Looks like 1.5 millimeters at the most for this hole. So that's how this looks like. That's how you can adjust this back rack to level, or maybe that's pushing it, that's a little too much, somewhere there, and then you just tighten it there to your heart's content until it's perfectly level for maximum aerodynamic efficiency, if that's important for you. So I don't tighten the bolt down there, but I also go with 5 Newton meters, or why not? That's just a reasonable guess. And that's how this looks like. This is how the components work together, and I'm gonna go and get to work and make this bar just as short as that one. Probably, how do I do that? Probably I'm gonna find a bolt that clamps both of these together here so that they are the same length. Not this much, just to hold them this way. Okay, and then I can just cut the second one exactly where the first one was cut and just file it a little bit with a flat file. And I also filed the inside with a round file, but why not? Just why not? In the final position, the angle of this bar, just look up here, the angle of this bar here is going to be down, so any moisture that gets into it will be draining out from it. So I'm going to be happy with the end unpainted and just gravity drained. So that's all I wanted to share about this one. Thank you very much for watching.